Corey and we were close for a while. And then Kylie and I had a big sister fight, and he tried to intervene into it. And so that caused a little problem between us. We apologized and we got over it, but it just kind of stayed here. It never really did.
Kendall has been in a serious relationship with Corey for several years, and while they've managed to keep a relatively low profile, their relationship hasn't been without controversy. Kendall, who prides herself on her independence and her ability to navigate life on her own terms, found herself in a situation where her relationship with Corey was becoming a point of concern for her family, particularly her mother, Kris Jenner, 64 years of age, and even now at 58, was on the verge of being intubated in the ICU. Kris, the matriarch of the family, has always been fiercely protective of her children. Known for her business acumen, she steered the Kardashian Jenner clan to global fame, making strategic decisions for their careers and personal lives. However, the situation with Kendall's relationship was different, and it pushed Kris to a breaking point. In a shocking turn of events, Kris found herself begging her daughter to reconsider her relationship with Corey and ultimately end things, for the sake of Kendall's happiness and well-being. At first, Kendall's relationship with Corey seemed to be a positive influence on her life. He appeared to be supportive of her career and a stabilizing figure. However, over time, cracks began to show. Kendall, who had always been the quiet and reserved member of the family, started showing signs of stress. Her usually positive and energetic attitude began to fade, and those close to her began to notice that something was wrong. Kris, being the observant and protective mother that she is, immediately began noticing these changes in Kendall. She saw her daughter withdrawing from family events, canceling plans, and becoming increasingly distant. Kendall, who was usually so open about her feelings and her goals, seemed to be hiding her emotions, leaving Kris increasingly concerned. At first, Kris tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe Kendall was just going through a phase or dealing with the pressures of her career. But as time went on, the signs became harder to ignore. Kendall, who had always been confident and independent, Kendall seemed to be retreating into herself. The worst part was that she wasn't talking to her family about what was going on in her personal life. After weeks of watching her daughter suffer in silence, Kris couldn't wait any longer. She called Kendall over to her house for a private conversation. Kendall, who had been avoiding her mother's calls for days, finally agreed. She walked into Kris's home. The tension was already palpable. Kris had never looked so serious. They sat down in Kris's private study, and the air between them was thick with unsaid words. Kendall sat across from her mother, her usual calm demeanor replaced with nervous fidgeting. She could sense that something was different about this meeting and wasn't sure she was ready for what Kris had to say. Kris wasted no time in addressing the elephant in the room. "Kendall, I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Corey," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I know you've been going through a lot, and I've been patient, but I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when I can see that it's not." Kendall looked down, avoiding her mother's gaze. She didn't want to admit that Kris was right. She didn't want to talk about how things had gotten so complicated with Corey. She loved him, but she couldn't ignore the growing distance between them. Still, she wasn't ready to confront those feelings. Kris continued, her voice tinged with concern. "Sweetheart, I love you more than anything in this world, and I can see you're struggling. You've been distant. You're not the same Kendall I know. I want to know what's going on. I want to help." Kendall's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at her mother. The weight of the situation, of everything she had been holding in for so long, came crashing down on her. She had tried so hard to make her relationship with Corey work, but deep down she knew it wasn't right. Yet she couldn't bring herself to face the truth. "I don't know what to do, Mom," she whispered. "I love him, but I feel so lost. I feel like I'm losing myself in this relationship. Corey has been different. I don't know who he is anymore, and I don't know if I can keep going like this." Kris's heart broke as she listened to her daughter. Kendall had always been the one to keep her emotions in check, to remain calm in the face of adversity, but now she was clearly broken. Kris knew that something had to change. "Kendall," Kris said softly, "I don't want you to keep suffering like this. You deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who lifts you up, someone who sees your worth. Corey is not that person." Kendall was taken aback by her mother's words. "Mom, I don't know what you mean," she said, her voice shaking. "Corey and I have been together for a long time. I don't know if I'm ready to walk away from him." Kris leaned forward, her face filled with emotion. "Sweetheart, I'm not saying this because I don't like Corey. I'm saying this because I love you. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And I don't think this relationship is helping you. You need to focus on your happiness. And right now, that's not with him." The conversation was intense, and for the first time in a long while, Kendall began to realize that her mother was right. She had been so caught up in her relationship with Corey that she had lost sight of who she was. She had sacrificed her own happiness for a relationship that no longer fulfilled her. For weeks, Kendall continued to reflect on her mother's words. She spoke to her sisters, confided in her friends, and took time for herself. She realized that her happiness had always been dependent on external factors, like her career and her relationship with Corey, but she hadn't been focusing on herself. As Kendall embraced her independence, she came to understand that she didn't need Corey to be happy. She didn't need anyone to define her self-worth. She had always been enough on her own. This is from a side. Eventually, Kendall made the difficult decision to end her relationship with Corey. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't without heartbreak, but it was necessary for her own well-being. As she navigated the difficult road of healing, she found solace in her family, her own strength, and the knowledge that she had made the right decision. The intense conversation with Kris was one of the hardest things Kendall had ever had to do, but in the end, it helped to reclaim her life and her happiness. Kris Jenner's intervention was a turning point in Kendall's emotional journey, and it ultimately led to a better understanding of herself and her needs. While the road ahead may still be filled with challenges, Kendall knows that she can rely on her family for support every step of the way. As for Kris, she has once again proven that a mother's love knows no bounds, and sometimes tough love is the key to helping a child find their way. What do you think about Kris Jenner's intervention in Kendall's relationship? Do you believe Kendall made the right decision? Or do you think there's more to the story? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to VIP Watch for more exclusive updates on the Kardashian-Jenner family. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with more inside info and exclusive stories.